Hi, Patrick Delahanty from AnimeCons.com here, and I'm here to present our annual list of the 10 largest anime conventions of the past year. I've been doing this list for something like 10 years now, and what I do is I look at the data we have on AnimeCons.com that is submitted by convention planners, the people that run the actual conventions. These are the numbers that they report to us. And I then take the list of the largest ones and present that to you every year. These aren't necessarily the best conventions, they're just the largest. And also, these are anime conventions. These are conventions that primarily describe themselves as being focused on anime. There are some multicultural, multi-genre conventions out there, like your Comic-Con, Dragon Con, and the Wizard Worlds. They may have some anime at them, but we are looking at the ones that are primarily anime. If they call themselves a sci-fi convention first and they have an anime track, we're not considering them for this list. Trying to rank that would just be unmanageable. So to make it simple, we're doing what we've done for the last 10 years, and that's just looking at the anime conventions. So I have here the list, and as always, for the last, I don't know how many years, probably like 8 or so, Anime Expo is the largest. This year they reported 61,000 attendees. That's the total number of people with a badge. Now, there's 3 ways to measure attendance at a convention. One, used by a lot of trade shows and professional conventions, is called turnstile attendance. That's where when somebody attends 3 days, they count that person 3 times. So if you've got 10,000 people that each go back to the 3-day convention every day, they're going to report that as 30,000 people, even though there are only actually 10,000 people, 10,000 unique people. So that's turnstile attendance, and most anime conventions don't actually report those numbers, or if they do, they'll report them in addition to those numbers, but we ignore those because it's pretty much a lie. I mean, you're not having 30,000 people. It's 3 days, so split that up and how many unique people you actually had. And that's what a lot of anime conventions do. They provide those numbers. So Anime Expo reports 61,000 total attendance. Now, there's 2 other methods to count. The total attendance, or what we sometimes refer to as warm bodies, that's anybody in the convention with a badge. So not only is it the paid attendees, but it's also the staff, the guests, the vendors, the artists, anybody that is wearing the convention lanyard and the convention badge. It doesn't count hotel employees or convention center employees, any hired security. Those aren't counted. It's the number of badges they printed. That's the easiest way to think of it. And so that's how Anime Expo tends to count theirs. The other method to count is paid attendance, and that's only counting the number of people that paid for a badge. So staff, if they haven't paid, they're not counted. Volunteers usually aren't counted. Guests, press, vendors, none of those count. It's only the people who paid money to get in the door. And those, the warm bodies and the paid attendance are the most popular ones. Now, as I mentioned, Anime Expo has done the total attendance count, the warm bodies. Otakuthon, our number 2 convention, has an attendance of 34,892 paid attendees. So the top 2 have different ways to measure. And these 2 have been ranked 1 and 2 for as long as I've been doing this list. There was 1 year where they swapped, but yeah, now there's Anime Expo has it's like 30,000 people more, apparently, according to their report. And Anime Expo, their attendance, according to the numbers they've supplied, went up 11,600 people since last year. That's unbelievable. So Otakon's attendance went up about 2,000 people. And so the first 2, every time we do this list, it comes as no surprise to anybody. Now number 3 And number 3 has been ranked number 3 for a while. They've got a pretty solid hold on that spot. It's Anime Central, and they reported 28,692 people. That's up about 4,000 people since last year. Anime North reported a paid attendance count of 23,952. That's up about 1,500 people. And our 5th convention on our list this year, A-Kon, has jumped up to number 5. That's up 1 spot from last year for them. They had 22,366 total attendance. That's up just about almost 400 people over where they were last year. Number 6 on our list is Anime Boston. They reported the total attendance of 21,825 and the paid attendance of 21,200 people. Now, if you were paying attention last year, we reported over 22,000 total attendance for Anime Boston. So the attendance for Anime Boston actually went down 240 people. If you remember last year, though, Anime Boston was also the same weekend in the same city as PAX East. So the theory is that a lot of people that couldn't get into PAX East went to Anime Boston for 1 or more days. And so that drove up Anime Boston's attendance dramatically last year. But because PAX East was a different weekend this year, it went down, but it's only down 240 people. And since PAX East is on a different weekend again this year, I expect to see Anime Boston going up again in 2014. Ranked number 7, we have Sakura-Con. They were also ranked number 7 last year. This year they reported 21,000 paid attendees. That's up 786 people over last year, over their paid attendee count. So they're growing fairly steady. Number 8, we have Anime Weekend Atlanta. They reported total attendance count of 18,363. That's up about 5,000 people over where they were last year. So that's an incredible growth. I've been to Anime Weekend Atlanta just once. It's a great convention, so I'm not surprised that they're growing. But they seem to be growing in spurts, so it's kind of funny. Number 9 is a convention that I don't think has ever been on our list before. Anime Matsuri, down in Houston, Texas. You may have seen them on Heroes of Cosplay. They had 14,989 total attendance. That's up about 4,500 people over where they were last year. So they had a big jump. But Heroes of Cosplay hadn't come out yet, so the jump isn't related to that. And we'll see next year how being on Heroes of Cosplay and the drama involved with that show has affected their numbers. Did that draw more people to the convention, or is it keeping them away? We'll see. And number 10 on our list is Otakuthon in Montreal. They had a total attendance of 13,357 people. That's up about 2,300 over where they were last year. This has been a rapidly growing convention, and it's also bilingual, which fascinates me. I had hoped to visit it this year, but then I moved to California, so that kind of changed my plans, and I'm hitting a lot more West Coast conventions. Speaking of West Coast conventions, there's one that's not on the list this year that is usually on our list, but it's kind of notorious for coming in with late-breaking data. That's AnimeCon. This isn't the first time that they haven't reported numbers, but it really wouldn't surprise me to get the numbers right after I publish this, because it seems to happen every year. I'll ask for the numbers, I don't hear back, I publish the podcast, or I'm going to have a written version of this on AnimeCons.com, and usually right after it goes up, they send, oh, here's our numbers. So, Fanime, send them over. I checked your website, hasn't been updated for next year, so I tried. Other conventions that weren't on the list, Katsucon was on the list last year. But they issued a correction just recently when I was asking for their current numbers. Last year, they reported over 10,000 people. I forget exactly what it was, but the correction was that they only had 9,142 last year. This year they had 10,686. So they grew 1,500 people, but that's based off of the corrected numbers for last year. So they'd be ranked 13th or so this year. And once I go beyond 10, it gets really hard to get the numbers from these conventions, and there's just becomes to be so many that it's almost impossible to go beyond 10 conventions in this list. Other conventions that I haven't heard from, and I went looking for numbers, haven't heard anything. Youmacon, last year they had 12,000 people. OhioCon, they also had 12,000 people. I haven't been able to find any numbers for them this year. Last year, MomoCon, I had mentioned in my written report, they had 8,600 people, but this year they jumped to 12,200. So that's a big increase, and they just barely got cut off. I think they would have been 11th, depending on where some of those unreporting ones would fit in. Let's see, what else? We've got Anime Next with 10,283. And I think I mentioned Sane Japan with 11,000 people. But yeah, the list, at least the top 7 or so seem to be holding, top 8 seem to be pretty steady. Those are conventions that are pretty much on the list year after year. Anime Matsuri is a newcomer this year. Otakuthon's been on a few years now. And I think there's only one year that Anime Week in Atlanta didn't make the list, but all the others, Anime Expo, Otakon, A-Sen, Anime North, A-Kon, Anime Boston, Sakura-Con, they've been on the list as long as I've been keeping track. And I'd expect them to stay up there. Another interesting thing looking at these numbers is you can see kind of groups by size. You've got Anime Expo and Otakon, they're just large. Then you've got A-Sen at the high 20s. And then you've got a group that are, the low 20s, high teens. And then there's a big gap. And then you've got ones that are the low teens, between 10 and 14,000. And then there's the ones that are under 10,000. But yeah, there seem to be some groups. And I've noticed that for several years now. They seem to be sticking into these kind of little pockets of attendance size. But I know you probably want to be able to refer to the actual numbers. I've got them here in a little spreadsheet. But what I'll do is I'll post the numbers on AnimeCons.com. Go to the homepage and you can find our most recent articles. And if this is something you're watching near the beginning of 2014, then you'll probably find that article near the top. If you're watching this years from now, you may have to do a little digging in our news section, but just look for the largest anime conventions of 2013. I'm Patrick D., the creator and webmaster of AnimeCons.com, and this has been our first look into the summary of 2013 attendance, and we're going to keep doing this year after year. And also, I want to welcome everybody to Season 6 of AnimeCons TV. We're going to keep doing weekly Monday episodes, so please subscribe. You can find links to subscribe at AnimeCons.tv. Over on the right side of the page, you'll find a subscription link, and that has links to iTunes and right to our RSS feed and YouTube and all sorts of subscription options for you. And we've also got an MP3 feed, so if you just want to listen to me and you don't want to look at this face, we've also got the regular video, so if you have a phone or something you're watching this on, that's good. And we also have our HD feed, so if you're watching us on an Apple TV or just broadcast on your big HD TV, you can have the HD feed. So yeah, whatever fits you best. And if you're from one of the conventions that should be on our list, please Don't email the podcast. What you should do is go to AnimeCons.com, find your convention listing for 2013, and use the update link at the bottom. Submit your attendance, please. And as your convention happens for 2014, please submit your attendance. Don't forget, because some of these conventions, they happen, people don't report the attendance, and then the end of the year comes and we gotta go searching for it. So yeah, just update it right after the con. Let everybody know how many people are there, and maybe you'll be on our list. Anyway, thanks for watching this episode. We'll see you next week.